There are only two types of people in life. People who refer to movies as films, and people I enjoy hanging out with. This is Book versus Movie. I have been really excited to do this video. Movie adaptations. It's a sensitive topic. People who prefer the book are often considered pretentious, while people who enjoy the movie are often considered a little dumb. The only objective truth is that I am a little bit of both of those things. Let the battle begin. We're going to start off nice and strong with two of my favorites. I'm talking about Stephen King's The Shining and Ken Kesey's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Those who have seen both of these movies will know immediately what they have in common, and that is that they both star the uncomparable Jack Nicholson, a huge factor in the enjoyability of not only the movies, but the books as well. Here's the thing, I read both of these books for the first time this year, and I grew up watching both of the movies, so the cast of characters had already been burned into my psyche, which means I got to picture and hear Jack Nicholson the whole time I read both of these books, an obvious enhancement to any reading experience. But it wasn't only Jack Nicholson. In the book version of The Shining, Wendy's actually blonde, and no matter how many times Stephen King described her flowing blonde locks in tedious Stephen King detail, I could only ever picture a very not blonde Shelley Duvall. And the same can be said about McMurphy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, who's described as having freckles with fiery red hair. It doesn't matter. I see Jack Nicholson. This is why it's really hard for me to say whether I prefer the movies or the books, because the truth is I enjoyed these books as much as I did because of the movies. But in trying to keep them separated and let them stand on their own, I'm going to have to pick the book version of The Shining and the movie version of Cuckoo's Nest. It's really not fair when you look at the cast of Cuckoo's Nest, which is star-studded, and Jack Nicholson, red-headed or not, carried the whole thing on his back like a 7-foot Indian chief carrying a sink to throw through a window. It's an inside joke. That's not to say this isn't an absolutely fantastic book. The dialogue is hilarious, the prose is beautiful and poetic at times. I highly recommend this, but the movie is just so good. As for The Shining, you know, the movie version of The Shining gets a lot of unjust hate, I believe. Stanley Kubrick did an amazing job. There's really only a handful of writers who could have made it a better book than a movie, and Stephen King is one of those writers. He's just too good at writing. What do you want me to do? Truly, what makes this such a good book isn't even the horror elements. I'm honestly not even a huge fan of the horror genre. What makes this so good is the humanizing elements of it, the characters, the dynamic between them, and even the relationships they have with themselves, the dynamic between Jack and Wendy, Wendy and Danny, Danny and Jack, Jack's battle with alcoholism, Jack's battle with writer's block. It's truly a masterpiece, and I think you can only fully appreciate it if you are of a certain age and have raised kids who are of a certain age. I know that sounds snobby, but it's true. So there you have it, The Shining the book and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest the movie. I'm already exhausted. These lights are so hot. Next up is one I've already talked about in my Hunter S. Thompson video. Back for a second appearance. This is Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. A fantastic book, a fantastic movie. If there was going to be a tie on this list, this would probably be it, but I'm not settling for a tie. I'm not copping out. I'm not staying on the fence. I'm choosing a side. It has to be the book. Listen, I love Johnny Depp as much as anyone, okay? I love Gary Busey. I love Benicio del Toro. Christina Ricci's great. Cameron Diaz is great. But this is a story about drug abuse, and nobody excels at writing about drug abuse like Hunter S. Thompson. Like Stephen King, he's just too good at writing, okay? You think the movie's funny? The book is funnier. Read Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Hunter S. Thompson forever and always. Next up, we have one many people don't know about. I never hear anyone talking about this book or this movie, which is weird because the movie has a star-studded cast. Robert Downey Jr., Rosario Dawson, Channing Tatum, Chaz Palminteri, Shia LaBeouf. It goes on and on. I'm talking about A Guide to Recognizing Your Saints, a truly remarkable movie. It's honestly one of the most underrated movies around, truly one of my all-time favorites, and the book is awful. I bought this book way back in 2006 after falling in love with the movie, and I never read it. It just sat on the shelf. It followed me around from residence to residence, bounced around from home to home. It's staring at me longingly, hauntingly, begging me to finally pick it up and read it once and for all. And when I finally did this year, I couldn't even get through it. Now, were my expectations unreasonably high? Perhaps. If I had read this back in 2006 when I was 20 years dumber, would I have thought it was the literary equivalent of the Ark of the Covenant? Quite possibly. But I have never been let down the way this book let me down. And I voted for Obama. No, I'm kidding. I don't believe in anything. A Guide to Recognizing Your Saints, the movie, 1 million times over the book. Okay, do you remember in the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic when there was a toilet paper shortage? You go to the store to buy toilet paper only to find the shelves completely bare. A lot of people were highly worried about that. I, however, was not, because I knew that in my possession were all 324 pages of Devil in a Blue Dress by Walter Mosley. I hate read this book, okay? I decided it was bad 1/3 of the way into it, and I forced myself to read the remaining 2/3 because I'm a masochist. The movie was okay. Not even Denzel Washington could breathe life into this floating turd of a novel. No disrespect to Walter Mosley, okay? This is the only book by him that I've read, and I'm looking in my crystal ball, and I see it staying that way for the foreseeable future. Devil in a Blue Dress, the movie, hands down. Okay, the next one is a book everyone's heard of, but I don't know many people who've seen the movie. I'm talking about the beloved Huckleberry Finn by the one and only Mark Twain. What can I say about Huckleberry Finn that hasn't already been said much better than I could ever hope to say it? It's an American standard, a classic, a masterpiece. In 1993, Disney released a movie adaptation starring a young Elijah Wood, which is absolutely fantastic. I watched it so many times as a kid. Am I caught up in the nostalgia? Quite possibly, but I can't imagine anyone not enjoying that movie, or this book for that matter. To take such a well-known and highly praised book and make it into a movie that's even kind of good is an admirable undertaking. It should be acknowledged. But since I'm not allowing any ties on the list, I'm gonna have to go with Huckleberry Finn the book because I'm a goddamn American, okay? Mark Twain is one of my heroes. He should be one of yours. Read Huckleberry Finn, watch Huckleberry Finn. They're both tremendous pieces of art. The next one I have for you is Cormac McCarthy's The Road. I recently read this in 2 days, and I watched the movie the same day I finished reading it. Both are spectacular. Viggo Mortensen is great in everything he does. I do choose the book, but it's not a very wide margin, okay? If you don't know, this is the story of a man and his small son traveling through a post-apocalyptic world. I do have a son. He's not very small anymore, but I remember vividly when he was, and this book fucked me up. The ending is just so sad, so much so that it made tears stream down my face and it made me want to hug my child. That's how good this is. Again, the movie is very good, but this book just ripped my heart out of my chest. I highly recommend it, especially if you're a man who's raising a son or who has raised a son. We'll now take a swift left turn and talk about a book I read many, many years ago. This is Redemption, the story of Stanley Tookie Williams, the co-founder of the LA Crips street gang. Again, it's been many years since I've read this, but I do remember loving it. And then in 2004, a movie came out starring Jamie Foxx as Stanley Tookie Williams, and I enjoyed that as well. The book is better. I mean, honestly, I'd have to do a reread and a rewatch to make an educated decision, but talking out of my ass about things I barely remember is a hobby of mine, so I stand by my ill-informed opinion. If you're into learning about gang culture, criminal enterprises, if you're even into watching hood movies, I highly recommend this book. It's an easy read, it's a fun read, it's a quick read, and then watch the movie if you can find it. Next is a movie you may have seen or at least heard of. It's one of my favorite Quentin Tarantino movies. Most people don't even realize it was a book first. The movie's Jackie Brown, and the book is Elmore Leonard's Rum Punch. I read this earlier this year. This is such a fun little read. I highly recommend it if you're into crime novels, especially if you like the movie or Tarantino movies in general. As was the case with The Shining and Cuckoo's Nest, I was really happy to have seen the movie first because I was able to have all the characters in my head the whole time. Sam Jackson as Ordell, Robert De Niro as Lewis, Pam Grier as Jackie, Chris Tucker as Beaumont. What more do you want? Elmore Leonard is widely considered a master of dialogue. He's just so goddamn good at writing. It doesn't even make sense. If you're a writer, it's actually kind of discouraging to read him because everything he writes is wrong from a technical aspect. Everything he writes is incorrect as far as your formal education is concerned, but yet it's still way better than anything you've worked so hard and spent so much time trying to figure out how to write the right way. He's just so good. It is with a conflicted heart that I do have to choose the movie though, because Quentin Tarantino took a magnificently written novel and brought it all the way to life like only he can. Watch Jackie Brown, then read Rum Punch. If you don't enjoy both of them, check yourself into the hospital because you crazy. I got two more for you and they're both killers. Okay, I was hesitant to include this next one just because I already have a Stephen King book on the list, but this book and these movies are just too good to pass up. I'm talking about Stephen King's It. Listen, I already said this about The Shining, but I must reiterate, what makes this such a masterpiece is not even the horror elements, it's the human elements. Stephen King does not shy away from controversial topics, okay? This is not a story about a killer clown. This is a story about people. This is a story about fear. This is a story about childhood trauma. He's widely known to use a lot of words. I mean, look at this thing. It's a brick. If I had 1,000 more just like it, I could build myself a house. But those of us who love his work know that not one word comes cheap. Stephen King is an all-killer, no-filler master storyteller, and his novels are absolutely worth the time they require. Now, the movie, and to be clear, I'm talking about the 2017 version, which had a sequel in 2019. I'm not talking about the one that came out in 1990, even though enough respect to the almighty Tim Curry. In my opinion, these movies absolutely nailed this book. I mean, imagine trying to squeeze this 1,100 pages of complex characters and ideas into just a few hours. To say that's quite the undertaking is an understatement of criminal proportion. You can truly go wrong with neither the book nor the movies. You know what? I lied. This would be the closest to being a tie on the list. I take it back and I beg your forgiveness. I do have to choose the book only because it scared me more than the movies did, but the movies are truly phenomenal. Watch the movies, read the book. Your time will not be wasted. Last but not least, we have Chuck Palahniuk's magnum opus, Fight Club. I choose the movie, but goddamn, this is a fun book. If you like Fight Club the movie, please read the book. I highly recommend you read this book. I read it many years after having watched the movie several times, so a lot of the work was already done for me in terms of following the complicated plot, but there are some lines in this, some quips and some quotes that are just fantastic. Everything you ever love will reject you or die. Everything you ever create will be thrown away. Everything you're proud of will end up as trash. Well, I'm inspired. Chuck Palahniuk himself actually went on record and said that even he prefers the movie to his own book. Whether he was just being modest, only he knows, but it does make me feel a little better in my decision. David Fincher took an incredible novel and made an even more incredible movie. The set was great, the color grading was great, the subtle humor was spot on. I mean, hundreds, thousands of directors could have taken this book and made an absolute abortion of a movie. Thank God we got the movie we did. Okay, that's my list, but I will give you a quick peek at some books I haven't read yet that have popular movie adaptations. I plan to read all these sometime within the next year. First up, we have Susanna Kaysen's Girl Interrupted. I've heard really good things about this. Next is a classic, Anthony Burgess, A Clockwork Orange. I'm ashamed of myself that I haven't read this yet, but I promise I'll get to it. Next up, again, I'm ashamed of myself for not having read this yet. This is Stephen King's Cujo. Can't wait to read this. And last but not least, one of my favorite movies of all time. This is Nick Hornby's High Fidelity. I cannot wait to read this. I'll probably read this one when I'm finished reading what I'm currently reading. I'll probably be getting to this within the next couple weeks. That was the first installment of Movie versus Book. Again, I'm going to keep reading books. I'm going to keep watching movies. So we're going to have a second part. If you have any recommendations, what I should read next, what I should watch next, let me know below in the comments. You know how this works. Subscribe if you will. Share if you dare. Thank you so much for watching.